My dear child, please stop what you are doing right now. Just stop. Put everything else aside for a few minutes, because what you are about to hear is not something ordinary. This is not just another video playing on your screen. This is a message that was meant to find you at this exact moment, on this exact day, in the exact condition your heart is in right now. And deep inside, some part of you already knows that. You can feel it, can't you? That quiet pull, that stillness that came over you when this began, that is not coincidence. That is not accident. That is something far greater than either of us arranging this meeting between your heart and this truth. So, I am asking you, with all the gentleness I have, please do not scroll away. Please do not treat this lightly. Give this your full attention, because every single word that follows was chosen carefully, and every sentence builds towards something that has the power to completely change the direction of your life. Not someday, not eventually, right now, starting from this very moment. You see, most messages try to impress you. They try to entertain you or make you feel good for a little while, but this message is not trying to impress you. This message is trying to reach you. There is a very big difference between those two things. Something that impresses you fades when the screen goes dark. Something that reaches you stays with you when you lie down at night, when you wake up in the morning, when you are sitting in silence, and the world has finally gone quiet around you. That is what this is. This is the kind of word that follows you, because it was sent directly to you. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. You did not choose to open this on your own. Yes, your finger moved. Yes, your eyes landed here. But something deeper than your own decision brought you to this place. There is a force in this universe that is far more loving, far more patient, and far more precise than anything we can fully understand. And that force looked at your life, looked at where you are, looked at what you have been carrying, and said, "Today is the day. Today is the day this child hears the truth. Today is the day something shifts." And so here you are, and here I am. And together in this moment, something is about to happen in you that quiet, invisible, ordinary moments simply cannot produce. So, settle in, my dear child. Let your shoulders relax. Let your mind slow down. You do not need to figure anything out right now. You do not need to have the right response ready. You do not need to be spiritual enough, or strong enough, or put together enough. Just be here. Just listen, because what I have to say to you today is so important, so personal, and so full of love that I refuse to rush through it. Every part of this message matters. Every section builds on the last. And if you stay with me until the very end, I promise you, you will leave this place different from how you arrived. Now, let us begin with the very first thing you must understand. You were seen before you were heard. Long before you found the words to describe what you were going through, long before you could articulate the questions that kept you up at night, long before you even recognized your own pain for what it was, you were already seen completely, fully, without any part of you hidden. There is not a single corner of your life, not a single moment from your past, not a single fear you carry in secret that has gone unnoticed. You have been watched over with the kind of attention that never gets tired, never gets distracted, and never looks away. Think about what that means for a moment. In a world where people are constantly busy, constantly overwhelmed, constantly dealing with their own noise, you have had someone watching over every detail of your story, not judging it, not analyzing it from a distance, watching it the way a loving parent watches a sleeping child, with tenderness, with protectiveness, with a kind of love that does not need the child to perform or prove anything in order to keep that love in place. You have been loved even in the seasons when you felt invisible, even in the moments when you felt alone, even in the stretches of time when you wondered if anyone truly saw you, truly understood you, truly cared about the version of you that existed beneath the surface, beneath the smile, beneath the composure you worked so hard to maintain. That version of you, the real one, the tired one, the one who carries more than anyone realizes, that is the version that has always been seen most clearly. And I bring this up first because everything else I am going to say today rests on this foundation. If you do not know that you are seen, if you do not feel in your bones that someone who loves you has been present in your story all along, then the urgency of this message might feel overwhelming. It might feel heavy. It might feel like too much. But if you receive the truth that you are seen and loved and known completely, then the urgency of this message will feel different. It will feel like rescue. It will feel like comfort. It will feel like a voice saying, "It is time. I am right here." You do not have to be afraid. So before we go any further, I want you to take a breath and let that land. You are seen. You always have been. And the one who sees you is not disappointed in what he sees. He is not surprised by your mess. He is not shocked by your struggle. He is not exhausted by your complexity. He sees all of it, and he still calls you forward. He still says your name with gentleness. He still looks at your future with hope. That is who is speaking to you right now, and that is why this message carries the weight that it does. Now, my dear child, let me tell you something that the world rarely says out loud. This moment, the one you are in right now, was prepared long before you arrived at it. I know that sounds strange, but I mean it in a very literal, very real, very intentional sense. The timing of this message in your life was not left to chance. The fact that you are hearing this now, in this season, after everything you have already walked through, is not a coincidence of the algorithm or a random click of a button. The timing was arranged. The placement was intentional. The intersection of your heart's condition and this truth was orchestrated with the kind of precision that only eternity can manage. You might be wondering why. You might be thinking, if I was so carefully watched over, if my story was so intentional, then why did it take this long? Why did certain answers come so late? Why did certain seasons stretch so far beyond what felt reasonable? And those are fair questions. Those are honest questions, and they deserve an honest answer. Here is the truth. You were not ready earlier, not because you were failing, but because you were forming. There is a difference between delay that punishes and delay that prepares. The delay in your life, the waiting, the stretching, the season that seemed to go on longer than it should have, that was not punishment, that was preparation. You were being shaped for a moment that required a version of you that did not yet exist. And the shaping took time. Real shaping always does. Think about how long it takes to grow a tree strong enough to survive a storm. Think about how long it takes to forge metal strong enough to hold weight. The process is not fast because the purpose is not small. What you are being prepared for is not small. What lies ahead of you is not ordinary. An ordinary preparation would not have been enough. So yes, it took longer than you wanted. Yes, there were moments when the waiting felt unbearable. Yes, there were seasons when you genuinely did not know if you were going to make it through. But you are here, and you are here intact. Tired, yes, marked by the journey, yes, but intact. And that tells the whole story. Now, I want to shift to something that I know lives very close to your heart, something that has been there quietly, sometimes loudly, for longer than you care to admit. I want to talk about the battles you fought that nobody saw. My dear child, you have been through things that never made headlines in anyone else's life. You have survived storms that were entirely internal, entirely invisible, entirely yours to carry. You smiled at the right times. You said the right things. You showed up when you were needed. You held things together when everything in you wanted to fall apart. And you did all of that without anyone truly knowing the cost, without anyone seeing what it took from you each time, without anyone understanding that the version of you standing upright was doing so through sheer, quiet, exhausting determination. I want you to know that none of that went unseen. Every single silent battle you fought, every moment you chose to keep going when giving up, would have been so much easier. Every time you swallowed pain because you did not want to burden anyone. Every night you spent alone, with thoughts too heavy and too tangled to name. Every single one of those moments was witnessed, and not just witnessed from a distance. Witnessed with love, with pride, with a tenderness that words can barely hold. The world rewards visible victories. It celebrates what it can see, what it can measure, what it can applaud. But there is a different kind of accounting that happens in the quiet places, where private perseverance is counted, where endurance that nobody clapped for is honored, where the battles fought in silence are recognized with a weight of significance that public victories cannot match. Your hidden battles matter. They are not invisible to the one who matters most. They are the very proof of your strength, your depth, and your faithfulness under conditions that would have brought many others to their knees permanently. And yet, as I honor those battles, I also need to say something to you gently but clearly. Fighting in silence for too long has a cost. It teaches you to carry alone what was never meant to be carried alone. It trains you to minimize your own pain because you have learned that nobody can really hold it with you. It creates a habit of performing strength even when what you actually need is rest, is support, is the simple relief of saying out loud, "I am not okay." and having someone stay anyway. You learn to survive by being strong, and that strength is real, and it is beautiful, and it has served you in ways you do not fully appreciate yet. But strength that is never allowed to rest becomes its own kind of prison. And I see you in that prison sometimes, smiling from inside it, functioning from inside it, but longing deeply, quietly longing to put down what you have been carrying and just breathe freely for a moment. That freedom is available to you. It is not a distant dream. It is not something that belongs to other people who seem to have it easier. It is something that is waiting for you specifically, personally, by name. But it requires something from you first. It requires honesty. Not honesty with the whole world. Not a dramatic public unveiling of everything you have kept private. Just honesty here in this moment, between your heart and the one who already knows everything anyway. Let what is true be acknowledged. Let the weight be named. Let the exhaustion be admitted. Not so you can wallow in it, but so it can finally be healed. Now, let us talk about something that I know has confused you deeply. Let us talk about the silence, because I know that silence hurt you more than almost anything else. There were times you prayed, and it felt like nothing moved. There were times you cried out and heard nothing back. There were seasons when the absence of an answer felt so loud, so heavy, so complete, that you started to wonder if you had imagined the relationship entirely, if the warmth you used to feel had been a product of your own desperate hoping, rather than something real. And in that silence, your mind did what minds do. It filled in the gaps. It told you stories about what the silence meant. It said you are forgotten. It said you did something wrong, and now you are being ignored. It said maybe the connection was never as real as you thought. It said maybe you are just not the kind of person whose prayers get answered. And because those stories arrived quietly, because they did not announce themselves as lies, because they dressed themselves up in the language of reason and self-awareness, you believed parts of them. Maybe not completely, but enough to let them change the way you prayed, enough to let them shrink the size of what you dare to ask for, enough to let them lower the ceiling of your expectations, until you were living in a spiritual space that was survivable, but not alive. I need to correct this now, completely and tenderly. The silence was not abandonment. I want you to hear that again, because it is one of the most important things I will say to you today. The silence was not abandonment. It was not punishment. It was not withdrawal of love. It was not evidence that you were forgotten or rejected or deemed unworthy of response. The silence was protection, in a language you did not yet know how to read. There were answers I withheld from you, because receiving them at the wrong time would have hurt you, not helped you. There were doors I kept closed because what was on the other side of them at that particular moment would have taken something from you that you could not afford to lose. There were directions I did not confirm yet because you were not quite ready to walk in them, and walking before readiness would have cost you more than waiting ever did. My dear child, silence from a loving source is never empty. It is full. Full of things being arranged, full of things being protected, full of timing being honored, full of a wisdom that can see the end from the beginning and knows exactly when to speak and when to hold back. You read the silence as absence. I was using it as architecture. I was building something in you and around you that could only be built in the quiet. And now that the quiet has done its work, now that the foundation it laid is strong enough, my voice is returning to you with clarity. And I need you to receive it without the filter of all those old stories the silence taught you to believe. You were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. You were never deemed unworthy. You were being held in the most careful, most intentional, most love-filled silence this universe knows how to produce. And now the silence has served its purpose. Now the word comes. Now the clarity comes. Now I am speaking with a directness that the season of silence made possible because the roots it grew in. You are deep enough now to hold what I am about to say. Now, my dear child, let us talk about something that is sitting very close to the surface right now. Let us talk about time. Specifically, let us talk about what you have been doing with the time that has been given to you. Not in a condemning way, not in a way that is meant to make you feel guilty or ashamed, but in the most loving, most honest, most necessary way that love can speak. You have been using time as a hiding place. And I say that not as an accusation, but as a diagnosis, because a hiding place is not something you choose consciously. It is something that develops slowly, quietly, almost without you noticing, out of a very understandable desire to stay safe. You learned that acting on things brought outcomes you could not always control. You learned that making decisions opened you up to the possibility of being wrong. You learned that moving forward meant leaving behind the familiar. And the familiar, even when it hurt, at least had the comfort of being known. And so, you began to put things off, not dramatically, not all at once, but in small, quiet, reasonable-sounding ways. You told yourself you would address it when you felt more ready. You told yourself you would step forward when the timing felt more right. You told yourself you would have that conversation when you had more clarity, more energy, more certainty that the outcome would be worth the risk. And each time you said later, it felt responsible, it felt mature. But here is what later has been doing quietly in the background of your life while you waited for the right moment. It has been accumulating. Every later added to the one before it. Every postponed decision stacked on top of the last. And what began as a single reasonable delay became a habit. And what became a habit became a way of life. And what became a way of life began to shape your identity. Until somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing yourself as someone who moves. You started seeing yourself as someone who waits, someone who is almost ready, someone who is just one more piece of clarity away from acting. And the weight of all that accumulated later is part of what you feel right now as restlessness, as dissatisfaction, as a quiet but persistent sense that time is passing and the life you were meant to live is still waiting for you to arrive. That is not imagination. That is truth speaking in the language of longing. And longing that is ignored long enough becomes grief. And grief for a life unlived is one of the heaviest things a human being can carry. So hear me now with complete gentleness and complete clarity. The time for later is over, not because later was wrong in every season. There was a time when waiting served you beautifully. There was a season when patience was exactly the right response, and moving too quickly would have been costly. I am not saying all delay was wrong. I am saying this particular delay, the one you are in right now, has reached the end of what it can productively hold. The season it served has passed, and continuing to hold on to it now is no longer protection. It is loss, dressed up as caution. You do not need more time to figure this out. You have been figuring it out for a very long time already. The figuring out phase is not what you need now. What you need now is movement. Simple, honest, faith-filled movement. Not perfect movement. Not confident movement. Not fully certain about every detail movement. Just movement. Just one step in the direction you already know you need to go. Just one decision that says, I am done pretending that standing still is the same as being safe. Because standing still is not the same as being safe. Standing still is its own kind of risk. It is the risk of arriving at the end of a season and realizing you spent it waiting for a readiness that was never going to announce itself with trumpets and certainty. Readiness does not come before obedience. Readiness comes through it. You become ready by moving, not by waiting until you feel ready to move. This is one of the most important things I want you to take from this entire message. Write it somewhere if you need to. Readiness comes through movement, not before it. Now let me speak to the part of you that is afraid, because I know you are afraid. I know that underneath the delay, underneath the later, underneath the very reasonable sounding explanations for why now is not quite the right time, there is fear. Real fear. Fear that is not silly or irrational, but is rooted in real experience. Fear that came from real disappointment, real loss, real moments when you moved and it hurt, when you tried and it did not work, when you hoped and it did not happen the way you needed it to. You are not afraid without reason. Your fear has a history, and that history deserves to be respected, not dismissed. I am not going to stand here and tell you that fear is just a feeling, and you should push through it without acknowledging where it came from. That is not honesty. That is performance. And you have done enough performing. You have performed okay long enough. You have performed fine long enough. You have performed I can handle this long enough. What you need now is not more performance. You need someone to look at your fear and say, I see it. I know where it came from. And I am telling you, it does not have to make your decisions anymore. Fear is a powerful thing. It is designed to protect you in moments of genuine danger. Fear is a gift. It sharpens your senses. It slows you down. It makes you look twice before you step. But fear that was designed for a moment can become a permanent tenet if you let it stay too long. And what was once a protective response becomes a governing force. It starts making choices for you. It starts narrowing your world. It starts whispering that every unknown is a threat. that every step forward is a risk not worth taking, that the safest place is always where you already are. And my dear child, the safest place is not always where you already are. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is stay. Sometimes the riskiest choice is not moving forward into the unknown. It is staying behind in what no longer serves you. The discomfort of growth is temporary. The cost of staying in a place you have outgrown is cumulative. And cumulative costs are the ones that sneak up on you. They are the ones you only fully understand when you look back and wonder how you got so far from where you were meant to be. So I am not asking you to pretend you are not afraid. I am asking you to move in spite of the fear, to hold the fear in one hand and faith in the other, and to choose which one guides your steps. Fear will always be present. It does not go away when you decide to move, but it loses its authority when you stop letting it have the final word. Let us keep going, because there is something else I need to address, something that has been stealing from you quietly, something so subtle, so patient, so strategic in its approach that you may not have fully recognized it as the enemy it truly is. I am talking about weariness, not the kind that comes from physical tiredness, though you know that kind too. I am talking about soul weariness, the kind that comes from hoping for a long time, from believing through repeated disappointment, from continuing to show up in faith when the visible evidence kept suggesting that faith was not working. Soul weariness is different from giving up. In fact, the weary soul often keeps going. That is what makes it so dangerous. You continue, you function, you pray, you believe, but the fire has thinned, the expectation has shrunk. The wide open hope that you used to carry has quietly narrowed into something more manageable, more defended, more careful, because wide open hope gets wounded when it goes unanswered long enough, and wounded hope learns to protect itself by becoming smaller. You tell yourself you are being realistic. You tell yourself you are being mature. You tell yourself that expecting less means being hurt less. And on the surface, that logic sounds reasonable, but underneath it, something is dying. Something precious is being traded for safety. And that trade feels wise in the moment, but produces poverty over time. My dear child, weariness is not wisdom. I need you to hear that clearly. I need you to separate those two things completely, because your mind has been conflating them. You have been treating your reduced expectations as the fruit of hard-won maturity. But what they actually are is the fruit of a long battle that has tired you without you finding the restoration you needed. You are not wiser for expecting less from your life. You are just more exhausted, and exhaustion is not a teacher. It is a condition that needs to be healed. And the healing is available right now, in this moment, not next month when circumstances change, not after the situation resolves. Not when you finally feel rested enough to receive it. The restoration I am offering you does not require you to be in a good place first. It reaches you where you are. It meets you in the weariness itself, not to congratulate you on surviving it, but to lift you out of it so you can live again, not just survive again. I also want to tell you something very important about the enemy of your soul and his strategy in your life, because understanding his strategy is part of what sets you free from it. He is not as loud or as dramatic as you might imagine. His most effective tool against you has not been sudden catastrophe. It has been slow erosion, patient, consistent, strategic erosion. He watched you. He studied the shape of your faith. He learned where your strength came from and how long it typically held. And then he leaned into time. He knew he could not break you with one big blow. You are too strong for that. You have proven that already by surviving everything that should have broken you and coming out the other side, still breathing, still believing, still standing. He knew that. So instead of trying to destroy you outright, he shifted his strategy to simply wearing you down, making you wait long enough that hope started to feel foolish, making the silence stretch long enough that faith started to feel naive, making the distance between where you are and where you were supposed to be feel so large that you quietly stopped picturing yourself arriving. That is his tactic against strong souls, not destruction. Reduction, not taking everything, just dimming the light enough that you stop illuminating the space around you the way you were designed to, just shrinking your prayers enough that they stop reaching the ceiling, just lowering your ceiling enough that you stop growing toward it. That is what weariness has been doing in your life when it was allowed to settle in unchallenged. But I am challenging it now, right here in front of you. I am exposing it for exactly what it is, and in the exposing, I am removing its power. Because darkness loses its power when the light comes on, Tactics lose their effectiveness when they are named out loud. You cannot be strategically reduced by something you can fully see. And now you can see it. Now you know what has been happening. And now you get to choose differently. You get to choose to lift your expectations back to where they belong. You get to choose to pray with the kind of wide-open audacity that made your younger self feel so alive. You get to choose to stop confusing, survived with finished, and start living because you do. The future ahead of you is not a smaller version of the past. It is not just more of the same with slightly less pain. It is something genuinely new, something that required everything you walked through to prepare you for it. Something that the weary version of you has been standing in front of without realizing it, waiting almost for you to finally look up and see it clearly. Look up, my dear child. The future is not behind you. It is not buried under the weight of everything that went wrong. It is standing right in front of you, patient and ready, waiting for you to step into it with your whole self. Not the managed version, not the protected version, not the version that learned to want less so it could hurt less. Your whole self, fully, without apology. Now, I want to speak to you about something that might be the most personal thing I have said so far. I want to talk about the lie that has lived in the background of your identity for far too long. The lie that says you are too broken for what is ahead. The lie that says the damage you carry disqualifies you from the destiny you sense. The lie that says people who made the kinds of mistakes you made, who failed in the ways you failed, who struggled with the things you struggled with, do not get the kind of future that is being described here. This lie is ancient. It has been whispered into human hearts since the beginning of time, and it is effective precisely because it uses your self-awareness against you. You know your flaws. You remember your failures. You can recite the list of your shortcomings better than anyone else could. And the lie takes that self-knowledge, that honest awareness of your own imperfection, and it twists it into a verdict. It says, because you know all of this about yourself, and because you know it better than anyone else does, you are more qualified than anyone to confirm that you are not enough. But my dear child, self-knowledge is not the same as self-condemnation, and knowing your flaws is not the same as being defined by them. The very fact that you are aware of your brokenness is not evidence that you are disqualified. It is evidence that you are honest. And honesty is one of the most important ingredients in transformation. People who cannot see their own cracks cannot be healed of them. People who have never acknowledged their need cannot receive what is being offered to fill it. Your awareness of where you fall short is not a wall between you and your future. It is actually the door. The one who formed you is not surprised by what you know about yourself. He is not reading your list of failures with widening eyes, thinking, "Oh no, I did not realize it was this bad. Maybe I should reconsider." He saw the complete picture of your life before you lived a single day of it. He knew every mistake before it happened. He knew every struggle before it arrived. He knew every way you would fall short of the person you hoped to be, and he still chose you. He still called you. He still designed a future for you that was crafted specifically around who you are, mess and all. Not in spite of it. This is the part that breaks the lie completely. You were not chosen because you were impressive enough. You were chosen because you were his. And belonging to him is not something you can lose by failing. It is not something you can forfeit by being imperfect. It is not something that goes away when you disappoint yourself or others. It is woven into who you are at a level that failure simply cannot reach. So stop reading your brokenness as a verdict. Start reading it as a place where grace is doing its deepest, most beautiful, most transformative work. The cracks in you are not where the light goes out. They are where the light gets in. And not just in through your brokenness, surrendered and honest, becomes one of the most powerful things you carry because it keeps you humble. It keeps you dependent. It keeps you close to the source of everything you need. And people who are close to that source are the ones who change the world around them, not the polished ones. Not the ones who never struggled, but the ones who know what it is to need and who stopped pretending they did not. My dear child, I also want to address the pressure you have been feeling because it is real, and I do not want you to misunderstand what it is. The tightness in your chest that arrives sometimes without warning. The restlessness that keeps you awake when everything on the surface seems fine. The sense that something is approaching, something is shifting, something is right at the edge of happening, and you are not quite sure whether to be excited or terrified by it. That pressure is not anxiety in the negative sense. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is right, something is forming, something is breaking open in the best possible way. Think about the moment just before dawn. The sky does not get gradually lighter in a smooth, comfortable way. There is a moment right before the light comes where the darkness seems to thicken, where the night seems to press closer, where the quiet gets almost heavy, and then the light breaks, and everything changes. You are in that moment right before the light breaks. That pressure, that heaviness, that sense of something imminent and real and close, that is the darkness before the dawn, and the dawn is coming. Do not run from the pressure. Do not try to relieve it artificially by distracting yourself or numbing yourself or finding ways to stay busy enough that you do not have to sit with it. Let it do its work. Let it direct your attention to the things it is pointing toward. Pressure always points toward the place that needs response. It is the most honest compass you have. And when you follow where it points, when you respond to what it is asking of you, the pressure does not crush you. It propels you. The same force that felt heavy on your chest becomes the wind at your back. That is what obedience does to pressure. It transforms it from weight into momentum. And that brings me to one of the final things I want to say to you before we close. I want to talk about obedience. Not the kind that is performed out of fear. Not the kind that is mechanical or joyless, or done with a gritted teeth kind of reluctant compliance. I mean the kind of obedience that is actually an act of love. The kind that says, I trust you enough to move when you say move, even when I cannot see the full picture. The kind that says, your word in my life carries more weight than my own comfort and my own fear. The kind that says, I am done living in the space between knowing and doing, and today I am choosing to close that gap. That kind of obedience is not weakness. It is one of the most courageous things a human being can do because it requires surrendering control. And surrendering control is terrifying for someone who has been hurt before, for someone who learned that things go wrong when you let your guard down, for someone who built their survival on the ability to manage and predict and protect. Obedience asks you to release some of that. Not all at once, not recklessly, but genuinely in the direction that has already been made clear. And here is the beautiful thing about that kind of obedience. It does not leave you exposed and alone. The moment you step forward in it, grace rushes in to meet you. Provision arrives that was not visible while you were standing still. Clarity comes that was waiting for your movement to release it. Doors open that were not visible from a distance, but become real and solid and right in front of you the moment you take the step. This is how it works. This has always been how it works. Grace is not a reward for getting everything right before you move. It is a companion that travels with you as you move. So take the step, my dear child. Whatever the step is that you already know needs to be taken. Whatever the obedience is that you have been rehearsing in your mind but never quite allowing your feet to follow. Whatever the decision is that keeps surfacing and that you keep gently, carefully, reasonably pushing back down, take it. Not because you are certain, not because you are fearless, not because every question has been answered. Take it because you are loved and because you are ready enough. And because the one who is asking you to take it will be there when your foot lands on the other side. He has been there this whole time. He is not going anywhere now. Now, before I give you the closing words of this message, I want to say one more thing from my heart. This entire message, every word of it, every sentence, every truth, every call to action, it was built around you, not a general you. You, the one listening right now, the one who has been carrying quietly, the one who has been waiting patiently, the one who has been fighting invisibly, the one who has been standing at the edge of something bigger than they can see and wondering if they are brave enough to step into it. You are brave enough. You always were. You just needed someone to say it out loud clearly, without qualification, without a list of conditions you needed to meet first. You are brave enough. You are loved enough. You are seen enough. You are ready enough. And you are more than enough for what lies ahead of you. My dear child, I want you to sit with something for a moment before we go any further today. I want you to think about the version of yourself that existed 5 years ago. Think about what that person believed about their life, about their future, about how things would turn out. Think about the hopes they carried, the plans they made, the timelines they trusted, and then think about how many of those timelines did not work out the way that version of you expected. How many of those carefully constructed plans were quietly dismantled by circumstances outside your control? How many of those confident expectations were met not with the outcome you anticipated, but with something entirely different? Something that left you standing in the middle of your own story, wondering if you had misread everything from the beginning? I bring this up not to remind you of disappointment. I bring it up because I want you to notice something very important. That version of you, the one who made those plans, the one who held those hopes, did not know what you know now, could not see what you can see now, did not have the understanding, the depth, the perspective that you carry today. And yet, even with all those shattered timelines, even with all those plans that did not go the way you needed them to go, you are still here. You are still standing. You are still breathing. You are still present in your own story, which means the story is not over. It means the author has not put down the pen. It means every chapter that confused you, every plot twist that hurt you, every moment that felt like the ending was not the ending at all. It was the beginning of depth. It was the beginning of the kind of understanding that can only come through living, not through reading, not through watching, not through planning carefully from a safe distance. You are richer today than you were 5 years ago, not in spite of the hard seasons, but because of them. And I need you to hold on to that truth as we go through what I am about to say, because some of it will require you to trust a process you cannot fully see. And the proof that you can trust what you cannot fully see is already written all over the story of your life so far. Now, my dear child, let me speak to you about something that sits at the very center of everything I want to say today. Let me talk to you about the person you were created to be, not the person the world tried to make you, not the person that pressure and fear and disappointment shaped you into over the years, but the original version, the one that existed in the heart of your maker before a single day of your life had been lived. Because that person is still there, underneath everything, underneath all the layers of coping and adapting and surviving and managing. That original person, with all of their gifts and their fire and their specific, unrepeatable purpose, is still alive inside you, and they have been waiting patiently, sometimes not so patiently, for the moment when you would stop running from them and finally come back home to who you truly are. You have spent years becoming someone who could survive the world around you, and that adaptation was necessary. You needed to learn how to navigate difficult people, challenging circumstances, environments that were not always safe or kind or supportive. You needed to develop a kind of flexibility, a kind of resilience, a kind of armor that allowed you to keep functioning in places that were not always designed with your flourishing in mind, and you did that. You became remarkably good at it. You became someone who could hold it together in rooms that wanted to pull you apart, someone who could stay calm in storms that should have shaken you completely. But here is the thing about armor. Armor is wonderful in battle. It serves its purpose with excellence. But armor is not meant to be worn to dinner. It is not meant to be worn to sleep. It is not meant to be the permanent skin you live in every moment of every day. Armor worn too long starts to feel normal. And when armor starts to feel normal, you start believing that the protected version of yourself is the real version. You start thinking that the composed, controlled, capable, together version that you present to the world is the genuine you. And slowly, quietly, the original version, the vulnerable, passionate, dreaming, fully alive version, gets buried under the armor until even you have trouble finding them. I am calling that original version of you back to the surface now, not to take away your strength, not to make you naive or unprotected or reckless in a world that still has edges, but to remind you that strength and vulnerability are not opposites. The most genuinely powerful people in this world are the ones who are strong enough to be honest, courageous enough to be seen, and secure enough to let the armor come off in the presence of love. You are in the presence of love right now. You do not need the armor here. You do not need to perform competence or project certainty or manage how you are being perceived. You can just be exactly as you are. Tired where you are tired, confused where you are confused, hopeful where hope still flickers, uncertain where certainty has not yet arrived. All of it. Every complicated, layered, unresolved part of you is welcome here, because all of it is known, and all of it is loved, and all of it is being worked with, not against. So let the armor rest for the duration of this message, my dear child, just here, just for now, and let what I am saying reach the real you, the one underneath everything, because that is the version of you that this message was written for. Now let me tell you something about gifts, about the specific, unique, irreplaceable things that were placed inside you before you were born, because one of the greatest tragedies I see in human lives is not the gifts that were never given. It is the gifts that were given and then buried, hidden under fear, suffocated under self-doubt, frozen in place by the very wounds that were meant to be healed and released, not stored and carried. You have gifts, my dear child, real ones, specific ones, ones that are not general or interchangeable or available in anyone else in exactly the same combination they exist in you. The way your mind works, the way you see things that others miss, the way you feel the weight of situations with a depth that sometimes surprises even you, the way certain things light you up from the inside in a way that nothing else does. Those are not accidents. Those are not personality quirks to be managed. Those are design features, intentional, specific, placed there with purpose and with a destination in mind. And the tragedy is not that you do not have them. The tragedy is that you have spent so much energy surviving that you have had very little left over for thriving. You have had very little space to explore what those gifts could do in a context where they were fully welcomed, fully invested, fully released into the world the way they were created to be. You have been so busy holding everything together that you have barely had time to ask the question, what was I actually made to build? That question is not selfish. It is not indulgent. It is not the kind of thing you earn the right to ask only after you have met every obligation and handled every responsibility and made sure everyone around you is fully taken care of. It is a necessary question. It is a question that your Maker put inside you because He wants it answered. He did not give you those gifts as decoration. He did not place that fire in you as a feature you were meant to suppress in order to be more convenient for the people around you. He gave you those gifts because the world needs what they produce. And keeping them buried, keeping them theoretical, keeping them permanently in the someday category is not humility. It is loss. Real, costly, world-impoverishing loss. So I am asking you today, what is the thing you have been afraid to fully commit to? What is the direction that your gifts keep pointing you toward even when you argue with them? Even when you redirect yourself back to the safer path? Even when you tell yourself that it is impractical or too risky or too late? What is the thing that lights you up and also terrifies you? Because the intersection of those two feelings, the excitement and the fear, that is almost always the direction of your calling. That is almost always where your specific gifts meet their specific purpose. You do not have to figure out every step of that path today. You do not have to see the full picture clearly, but you do need to stop pretending the path does not exist. You do need to stop treating your gifts as a hobby while you pour all your real energy into the things that pay the bills but do not feed your soul. You do need to start taking seriously the possibility, the real, genuine, supported possibility, that the thing inside you that feels too big to be true might actually be exactly as big as it feels, and might be asking you to finally give it room to breathe. My dear child, let us now talk about relationships, because no conversation about your life and your future is complete without addressing the people in it. The relationships you carry, the ones that give life, and the ones that quietly drain it. The ones that call out the best in you, and the ones that over time have taught you to expect less of yourself. This is important territory, and I want to walk through it with you carefully. You were designed for connection. Not just functional connection. Not just the kind where people occupy the same space and exchange necessary information, but real connection. The kind where you are known. The kind where your presence actually matters to someone. Not just what you do for them. Not just the role you fill, but you yourself, your actual inner world, your actual thoughts, your actual hopes. That kind of connection is not a luxury. It is not something reserved for people who have their lives more together than you do. It is a need, a real legitimate human need that you were built with, and that goes unmet at a real cost to your spirit. But here is where many people get stuck. They have been hurt in the places where connection was supposed to happen. They reached out and were not received well. They were honest and were not handled carefully. They were vulnerable and found that the person they trusted with that vulnerability was not actually trustworthy. And so they learned slowly, painfully, to keep the real version of themselves hidden, to connect at a surface level while keeping depth safely out of reach, to be present in relationships while remaining fundamentally protected within them. And I understand that. I am not going to tell you that those protective instincts are wrong. They came from real pain. They developed for real reasons. But I am going to tell you that protection, when it becomes permanent, when it becomes the only mode you know how to operate in, cuts you off from the very thing you need most. You cannot be fully loved if you are never fully known. And you cannot be fully known if you never allow anyone close enough to see what is actually there. This is not a call to be recklessly open with everyone. Wisdom about who deserves your depth is important, and I am not asking you to abandon it, but it is a call to stop using past wounds as a reason to never try again. It is a call to stop letting the people who hurt you have the final word on what relationship can look like. They showed you one version, a painful one, a costly one, but one version is not the whole story. There are people in this world, and I will place them in your path, who are capable of receiving what you have to give and giving what you actually need. But you have to be willing to be found. You have to be willing to stop hiding so completely that even the right people cannot reach you. Before we go further, if this message is speaking to something real inside you, I want to ask you to take just a moment right now. If you have not already done so, press that. Because what we do here is not just content. It is a lifeline for people who need truth delivered with love. Now let us continue. Now, my dear child, let me say something about the season of loneliness that you have walked through, because I know it has been real. I know it has been long in some cases. And I know that loneliness is one of the most disorienting experiences a human being can have, because it is possible to be deeply lonely while surrounded by people. It is possible to be in a room full of faces and feel completely unseen. It is possible to have a calendar full of obligations and a heart full of isolation. And that kind of loneliness, the invisible kind, the kind that does not make sense on paper because look how many people are around you, that kind is one of the hardest things to admit because it sounds ungrateful. But it is real, and it is not something to be ashamed of. Loneliness does not mean you are unlovable. It does not mean you have failed at relationships. It does not mean there is something fundamentally wrong with you that makes genuine connection impossible for you specifically. Loneliness, especially the deep kind, often just means that you have not yet found your people, the ones who speak your language, the ones who understand the particular frequency of who you are without you having to translate yourself constantly. Those people exist. They are somewhere in this world carrying the same quiet sense of not quite fitting in the spaces they have been given, and they are waiting to be found just as much as you are. But here is the part that I need you to hear clearly. Your people will not find you if you have decided in advance that they do not exist. They will not reach you if the story you are telling yourself is that you are too different, too complicated, too much, too intense, too deep for the kind of connection you actually need. That story is not protection. That story is a wall. And walls keep out both the things that hurt and the things that heal. You cannot selectively exclude pain while remaining fully open to love. It does not work that way. Openness is openness, and the decision to finally be findable, even at the risk of being hurt again, is one of the bravest things you can choose. So choose it. Not all at once, not with everyone, but gradually, intentionally, with the discernment that wisdom has given you through everything you have already lived. Begin to let people closer than you have been allowing them. Begin to speak from the real place inside you instead of the managed place. Begin to take the small, careful, genuine risks that love requires. Because the alternative, the permanently protected, permanently isolated, permanently performing version of your life, is not the life you were made for. And some part of you has always known that. Now, my dear child, let me address something that I believe is at the root of much of what you carry, something that most people spend their entire lives circling around without ever actually landing on it directly. I want to talk about the question of whether you are actually worthy of the good things you hope for, not in a theological sense, not in a philosophical sense, but in the deeply personal, visceral, everyday sense. Do you actually believe in your gut that the life you sense is possible for you is actually meant for you? Or do you secretly believe that it is meant for other people, people who somehow deserve it more, people who started in better circumstances, people who made fewer mistakes, people who are just fundamentally more suited to good things than you feel yourself to be? I ask this because the answer shapes everything. It shapes how you pray. It shapes what you pursue. It shapes how hard you try and when you give up. It shapes whether you step through open doors or stand in front of them, convincing yourself that they must be meant for someone else. It shapes whether you receive love fully or hold it at arm's length, because some part of you is waiting for the moment when the person offering it realizes their mistake. The belief that you are not quite worthy is one of the most pervasive and most costly beliefs a person can carry, and it is almost always invisible to the person carrying it. You do not think of it as a belief. You think of it as realism. You think of it as just knowing how things work, knowing your own limitations, knowing the difference between what you hope for and what you can realistically expect. But it is not realism. It is a lie wearing the clothes of realism. And it has been wearing those clothes for so long that you cannot tell them apart anymore. So let me tell you what is actually true. You are worthy of love, not because you earned it, not because you are impressive enough, not because you have overcome enough or grown enough or proved enough. You are worthy of love because you exist, because you were made, because the one who made you decided that you deserve to be here, deserve to have a story, deserve to have a purpose, deserve to be loved with the kind of love that does not require performance as its condition. That is not a nice idea. That is not motivational language designed to make you feel temporarily better before reality sets back in. That is the most fundamental truth about your existence. And when you start living from that truth, instead of working against it, everything changes. The way you make decisions changes. The way you receive kindness changes. The way you engage with opportunities changes. The way you treat yourself in the private moments when no one is watching, when it is just you and your own inner voice, that changes most of all. Because you stop speaking to yourself the way your harshest critic would speak to you, and you start speaking to yourself the way the one who loves you most would speak to you, with patience, with encouragement, with a steady refusal to let your stumbles become your identity. My dear child, I also want to speak specifically to those of you who have been waiting for a sign. Those of you who have been asking, sometimes desperately, sometimes quietly, sometimes with words, and sometimes just with the posture of a life that has been held in suspension, waiting for some clear, unmistakable signal that it is okay to move, that it is safe to hope, that the direction you sense is actually real and not just wishful thinking dressed up as spiritual insight. I understand the desire for a sign. I understand it completely. In a world where you have been wrong before, where you have followed what you thought was a clear direction and arrived somewhere that hurt you, the desire for certainty before commitment is entirely natural. You do not want to be wrong again. You do not want to invest your hope in something that turns out to be another disappointment in a line of disappointments that has already stretched longer than you wanted it to. But here is what I need you to understand about signs and certainty and the way this actually works. Certainty is rarely given before commitment. It is almost always given through commitment. You do not receive absolute certainty and then decide to trust. You decide to trust. And then in the walking, in the actual lived experience of moving forward in faith, clarity accumulates, confidence builds, evidence arrives. Not all at once, not on a schedule you can predict, but consistently and genuinely, in a way that slowly transforms the terror of not knowing into the steady assurance of having seen enough to keep going. The sign you are waiting for, in many cases, is you. You are the sign. Your willingness to move is the thing that releases what you are waiting for, and that is not a burden. That is actually empowering when you understand it correctly, because it means the waiting is not passive. It means you have agency in this. It means the question is not, when will something happen, but when will you allow yourself to participate in what is already being prepared? When will you step into the story instead of watching from outside it, waiting for it to prove itself to you before you agree to be a character in it? Step in, my dear child. The story needs you in it, and the story will show you things from the inside that you could never see from the outside, no matter how long you watched and waited from a safe distance. Now, I want to take a moment and speak to something very practical, something that sometimes gets overlooked in conversations like this. I want to talk about your daily life, the actual concrete, moment-to-moment reality of how you spend your time and attention and energy. Because transformation is not just a spiritual event that happens in a single dramatic moment and then is done. Transformation is also a daily practice. It is built in the small decisions. It is constructed in the ordinary moments. It is assembled from the 1,000 tiny choices you make every single day about what to give your attention to, what to allow in, what to feed, and what to starve. And here is what I have noticed about your daily life. You have patterns that are working against you that you have not fully examined. Not because you are careless, but because patterns are hard to see when you are inside them. They just feel normal. But some of the things that feel normal are not neutral. The patterns I am talking about are things like the moment you feel the pressure of something important trying to surface, the habit of filling every quiet moment before it has a chance to say what it came to say, The automatic way you scroll or watch or consume anything that keeps your mind occupied enough that the deeper things cannot break through and demand your attention. Those are not just habits. They are avoidance strategies, sophisticated ones, comfortable ones, ones that have served you well enough that you have never had to confront what you would find if you sat still long enough to actually hear it. But the cost of that constant occupation is significant. It is in the quiet that transformation happens. It is in the stillness that direction comes. It is in the moments when you are not consuming or producing or performing or managing that the voice you most need to hear is able to reach you. And you have been making sure those moments are very rare. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but consistently and effectively nonetheless. So one of the most practical things I am asking you to do starting today is to give yourself silence, intentional silence, deliberate stillness, not as a spiritual exercise to check off a list, but as a genuine act of willingness to be present with what is actually inside you, without the noise, without the buffer, without the constant stream of input that keeps the important things just below the surface, where they cannot quite reach you. Sit with what is there, even if what is there is uncomfortable, even if what surfaces in the silence is grief, or confusion, or longing, or a restlessness you do not know how to name. Those are not things to be avoided. They are things that need to be heard. And the one who loves you is present in that silence, not as an absence, not as emptiness, but as a steady, gentle, patient presence that has been waiting for you to get quiet enough to notice him there. My dear child, let me now speak to you about hope. Real hope, not the fragile, wishful, fingers-crossed kind that shatters every time circumstances do not cooperate, but the deep-rooted, unshakable kind that does not depend on circumstances at all. The kind that exists not because everything is going well, but because you know who holds everything. The kind that does not require good news to stay alive, because it is not rooted in good news. It is rooted in a person, in a love, in a faithfulness that has been demonstrated so many times, across so many generations of human stories, that it cannot honestly be doubted by anyone who has actually looked at the evidence. You have been hoping in circumstances. That is why hope has felt so fragile. When the circumstance looked good, hope was strong. When the circumstance looked bad, hope collapsed. And that cycle, the up and down of hope tied to outcomes, has exhausted you. It has made hoping feel dangerous because you never know when the next disappointment is coming. And every time it does, it takes something from you that is harder to get back than the time before. But what if you unhooked hope from circumstances entirely? What if you built your hope not on what is currently visible, but on what you know to be true about the one who is working in the invisible? What if you stopped treating hope as a feeling that arrives when things look promising and started treating it as a choice, a daily, deliberate, sometimes difficult choice to keep your eyes on what is real, even when what is visible is discouraging? That kind of hope does not collapse when circumstances change, because it was never standing on circumstances to begin with. It stands on something that cannot be moved, something that does not fluctuate based on what happened this week or this month or this year. It stands on a love that was established before your first breath and will still be standing long after your last. That is the foundation. And when you build your hope on that foundation, you discover something that surprises you. You discover that hope does not drain you, it replenishes you. The right kind of hope, rooted in the right place, is actually one of the most energizing forces available to a human soul. So I am inviting you to rebuild your hope today, not on outcomes, not on timelines, not on whether things are going the way you thought they should be going, but on this. The one who loves you is working. He has never stopped working. He will not stop working. Every piece of your story, even the pieces that look broken or delayed or confusing, is being woven into something larger than you can currently see. And when you see it clearly, you will understand that nothing was wasted. Not one moment, not one struggle, not one tear, not one dark night, not one silent prayer that felt unheard. All of it, every single piece of it, was being used. That is the promise. Not that life will be easy. Not that pain will not come. Not that every prayer will be answered on the timeline you prefer, but that nothing is wasted. That everything is being worked together. That the story has a good ending, not just tolerable, not just survivable, but genuinely, deeply, beautifully good, and that you are in it by name, by choice, by love. My dear child, let me also say something about the people around you, the ones you have been watching and comparing yourself to, perhaps more than you would admit. The ones whose lives seem to have a momentum and a clarity and a forward movement that yours has not always felt. The ones who seem to have figured things out while you were still trying to understand the question. I want to speak to the comparison that has lived in you, sometimes quietly and sometimes loudly, and tell you what it has cost you and why it is time to release it. Comparison is one of the most effective thieves of peace available to human beings. And in the age we live in, where everyone's best moments are curated and displayed and available for constant consumption, comparison has more raw material to work with than ever before. You see what others have. You see where they are. You see the highlights of their journey without seeing the full picture, without seeing the parts that hurt, without seeing the private struggles, the quiet failures, the seasons of confusion and delay that happen before the momentum you are currently admiring. You see the arrival without the journey. And then you compare your entire journey, including all the hard parts, to their visible arrival, and you find yourself lacking. You conclude that something is wrong with you because you are not there yet. But my dear child, you are not on their path. You never were. You were never meant to arrive at the same time, take the same route, or reach the same destination. Your story is not a slower version of someone else's story. It is a completely different story altogether, with a completely different purpose, a completely different set of lessons, a completely different destination that requires a completely different journey to reach. And comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 10 is not wisdom. It is not motivation. It is just pain that you are choosing unnecessarily. Your timeline is not late. It is yours. Your pace is not behind. It is calibrated to what you specifically need in order to become who you specifically are meant to be. And the next time comparison tries to convince you that you should be further along by now, I want you to ask it a simple question. Further along toward what? Toward someone else's destination? Toward a version of success that someone else defined? Toward an arrival point that was designed for a journey you were never on? Because those destinations are not yours, and arriving at them would not actually satisfy you even if you could get there. What would satisfy you is arriving at your own destination, the one that was designed specifically for you, the one that your specific gifts and your specific experiences and your specific pain and your specific growth have been preparing you for. That destination is real. It is waiting, and the path to it is not behind you. It is directly in front of you. You just have to stop looking sideways long enough to see it clearly ahead. Now, my dear child, as we move through this message together, I want to address something about faith, about what real faith actually looks like. The kind that is messy and uncertain, and sometimes hanging by a thread. The kind that has survived doubt and has come out the other side, not because the doubt was resolved by perfect answers, but because even in the middle of the doubt, you kept showing up, you kept coming back. You kept reaching towards something you were not sure you could touch, and kept reaching anyway. That is real faith, and it is far more common and far more beautiful than the version that gets celebrated publicly, the version that is certain and confident, and has a testimony full of clean narrative arcs and decisive moments. Those testimonies are real, and they matter, but they are not the only kind. There is also the testimony of someone who was not sure, who had real questions, who sat with genuine doubt, who sometimes felt absolutely nothing when they prayed, and who kept coming back anyway. Not because they had it figured out, but because something in them refused to let go. Because even on the days when faith felt fragile, that stubborn, inconvenient, holding on by the fingernails kind of faith is not weak faith. It is some of the strongest faith in existence because it has been tested and it survived the test. Not by getting all the answers, but by choosing relationship over resolution, by deciding that the connection mattered more than the explanation, by saying, even if I do not understand this, even if this does not make sense to me right now, even if the pain of this season has made me question everything I thought I knew, I am not going to walk away. I am going to stay. I am going to keep showing up. I am going to keep reaching, because the alternative of walking away entirely, feels worse. That is where you have been, and that is not a failure of faith. That is the deepest expression of it, and I honor it. I see it. And I am telling you that the one you have been stubbornly reaching toward, even through the doubt, even through the silence, even through the seasons when everything felt uncertain, he has been reaching back. He has been present in every moment you showed up. He has been closer than you knew. In every prayer that felt unheard, he was there. He always was. And he is here now in this moment, honoring your persistence and meeting your faithfulness with a clarity and a presence that the season of doubt was preparing you to receive. My dear child, I want to talk to you now about restoration, because I know that word carries weight for you. I know that there are things in your life that feel broken in ways that seem permanent. Relationships that ended badly, opportunities that were lost, years that passed in ways you wish they had not, versions of yourself that you left behind in painful seasons and are not sure you will ever fully get back, things that were taken from you, things you gave away that you cannot reclaim, things that happened that cannot be unhappened, no matter how much you wish they could be. Restoration does not mean that broken things become as though they were never broken. Real restoration is not about returning to a previous state as though nothing happened. That is not restoration. That is denial. Real restoration is about what those broken places become when they are healed. It is about the new strength that grows in the places that were once wounds. It is about the wisdom that comes from surviving what you survived. It is about the compassion you now carry for others who are in places you have already been, compassion that you could not have had if you had never been there yourself. The broken places in your life, the ones that still ache when you press on them, the ones that you try not to think about too much because the grief of them still has real weight. Those places are not the end of the story. They are the places where the most significant work is happening, where the deepest transformation is occurring, where the roots are going down the furthest. And roots that go down the furthest are the ones that hold the strongest in the storms that come later. You are being made into someone who can weather things that would shake people who have never been through what you have been through. That is not a small thing. That is not a consolation prize. That is a profound and powerful thing. To be someone whose depth cannot be manufactured, whose compassion cannot be faked, whose understanding of human pain cannot be studied into existence, but can only be lived into. That is what your broken places have given you when you allow them to be healed rather than hidden. And that is what restoration looks like. Not the absence of scars, but the transformation of them into something that marks you as someone who was in the fire and came out with gold. Now, my dear child, I want to address something about the future that I believe you need to hear with real clarity. The future you are stepping into is genuinely good. I want to say that plainly, without qualifications and without conditions that make it sound uncertain. The future ahead of you is genuinely, specifically, personally good. Not good in a vague general sense. Not good in the way that people say things will work out when they do not really know what to say. Good in a real, detailed, designed, prepared, waiting for you kind of way. But I also need to tell you something important about that good future. It does not look the way you currently imagine it looks. The picture you have in your mind of what a good future looks like comes from your current understanding, your current perspective, your current sense of what would satisfy you, what would heal you, what would finally make you feel whole. And that picture, while not entirely wrong, is smaller than what is actually prepared. It is built from the framework of your past and your present. But what lies ahead of you was designed from a framework that is larger than either of those things. The good that is coming for you will surprise you. It will include things you have specifically hoped for and prayed for, but it will also include things you have not imagined. Things that will make you realize when they arrive that your vision of what was possible for your life was limited in ways you were not even aware of. There are dimensions of joy ahead of you that you have not yet had access to. There are forms of purpose ahead of you that you have not yet discovered. There are connections ahead of you that will show you what it feels like to be truly seen, truly valued, truly aligned. All of that is real, all of that is waiting, and all of it is in motion. Your job is not to manufacture it. Your job is not to figure out how to make it happen through the right combination of effort and strategy and networking and optimization. Your job is simply to be in position, to be available, to be moving in the direction that has been made clear, to be responding to what is being asked of you today, so that tomorrow finds you exactly where you need to be when the next thing arrives. Position is everything. And position is established by faithfulness in the present, not by anxiety about the future. So live today well, not perfectly, well with honesty and intention, and a genuine willingness to give this day the kind of presence and care that makes it count, because this day is not a waiting room for your real life. This day is your real life, and the person you become in the days that feel ordinary is the person who will be ready when the extraordinary ones arrive. My dear child, as we come toward the end of this message, I want to speak one final time about the decision that is in front of you, because everything we have talked about today ultimately converges on this point, on the question of what you are going to do with what you have heard, because a message either moves you forward, or, if it is ignored, it makes the next step slightly harder. Truth heard and acted on produces life. Truth heard and set aside produces a kind of internal tension that accumulates over time into the weight you already know too well. So the question is not whether this was true, you already know it was. The question is not whether it applied to you, you already know it did. The question is simply, what comes next? What does the version of you that walks away from this message do differently than the version that walked in? What specific, concrete, real thing changes because of this hour? What decision gets made? What step gets taken? What postponed thing finally gets attended to? What avoidance pattern gets interrupted? What honest conversation finally happens? What direction finally gets committed to? You do not have to answer all of those questions today, but you do have to answer one of them. Pick the one that is closest to the surface. Pick the one that has been pressing most persistently. Pick the one that you have been avoiding most carefully, because some part of you knows that when you finally address it, something else will have to change too. Pick that one and do something about it. Today, not tomorrow. Not when you feel more ready. Today, because later has become now. That is the most important thing this entire message has been building toward. Later has become now. The season of deferral is complete. The time for holding everything at arm's length, while you wait for perfect certainty to arrive, has passed. And what is standing in front of you, if you will receive it, is the invitation to step into the life that has been waiting for you. Not the managed version, not the survived version, not the protected version that stays small so it cannot be hurt. The full version, the real version, the one that carries your gifts fully forward, that connects deeply and honestly, that hopes without hedging, that trusts without demanding guarantees, that moves with the one who has been present through every single chapter so far and is not going anywhere now. That life is available to you right now, in this moment, not as a distant dream, but as a present reality that requires only your participation to begin unfolding. So here is my invitation to you, my dear child. Step forward. Whatever that means in your specific life, whatever the one step is that you already know needs to be taken, take it. Take it today. Take it imperfectly if necessary. Take it uncertainly if that is all you have available. Take it afraid if fear is what you feel. But take it, because on the other side of that step, there is a version of your life that you have been sensing but not yet living. And it is time. It is genuinely, completely, undeniably time. You were made for this moment. Everything you walked through prepared you for exactly this. And the one who carried you through all of it is right beside you now. Not pushing, not forcing, but reaching out his hand and saying, "Come, let us go. I have been waiting to show you what comes next. And it is better than you know." Now, let me close this message in a way that sends you forward, rather than simply bringing it to an end. My dear child, everything you have heard today was leading to this moment. The God who sees you, who has always seen you, who watched every hidden battle and counted every silent tear, is not finished with your story. Not even close. You are not behind. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not too late, and you are not too much. You are exactly where the story needs you to be, standing at the beginning of the chapter that all the previous chapters were building toward. So go forward now, not with fear, not with all the answers, but with the deep, quiet, unshakable knowing that you are not going alone. You never were. You never will be. The hand that held you through everything before is the same hand reaching forward now. Take it. Step through. Your life. Your real life, the one that has been waiting for you, begins now.